What's your frick this I quit moment? Was getting screamed at in a meeting by some marketing jerk that was literally demanding my technical group perform magic on a completely unrealistic time schedule with almost no resources. Literally screaming at me in front of about 8 of my peers, calling me incompetent, just do your job. All of that. I stood up, said I refuse to be talked to like that, and left the meeting. Normally if you just get up and leave these types of meetings, you're fired. Boss scheduled a meeting with me later in the afternoon after hearing about it. Figured I'd be walked out. Was told they fired the marketing guy. That was my fit, I quit moment. But the company kept me on and fired the other guy. Pretty happy, it's been a solid place to work ever since. That's a nice one. More bosses should be along those lines and fire the cunts causing the workplace to be trash. Many years ago, I worked at a place called Daily Fast Food. I only worked there for 3 days. I was going through the food items in the deep fridge and the manager walked by and started yelling at me for checking that. He said, "Don't look what's there and do your cooking." I was curious and later when he had gone out, I checked it and found that it was smelling meat from several days ago. I quit right there. Nope, the frick right out the door. When I began to argue why he was doing this shit, he called me an idiot and a stupid guy and everyone laughed at me. I clearly knew everyone was involved in selling rotten meat. I fired myself before that asshat boss would do. Those employees were even more evil. I was a truck driver working a regional route that required me working nights. So basically I would drive all through the night, deliver a load, sleep through the day, and take a load back to my original place the next night. The thing is, sleeping during the day at a warehouse where yard dogs, the guys that move trailers around the lot of the warehouse with little tractor deals, were constantly moving shit around, knocking into my truck, and oftentimes literally waking me up to move my truck. I was barely getting any sleep and the only time I had to ever get a good night's rest was during the weekend. So driving to my first delivery, I told my manager I'm taking an extra day off because I'm exhausted and I have to get a few days of sleep. I was literally getting maybe 3-4 hours of solid sleep a day and energy drinks were worthless at this point. They gave me the go-ahead. I dropped my delivery, slept as best as I could at the warehouse and picked up the load to take back with a message from my managers telling me to have a good weekend and rest up. When I was about an hour and a half away from my destination, after driving all night for about 8 hours reaching pure exhaustion, I get a message saying never mind, we need you to work this weekend. Mind you, I know this stuff happens and you sometimes have to pick up the slack of other employees at times. Things happen, I get it, and 99% of the time I'm all for helping out other employees and my managers if they need it. But this was about the 3rd time this happened. I haven't had a good night's sleep in 3 weeks at this point and I kept trying to call my managers or anyone who would answer me, but it was the weekend and no one would respond to their messages or phone calls. I was literally being ignored and I just snapped. Luckily, the demand for truckers is massive. I mean, I get texts non-stop asking if I'm in the market because a company needs drivers. I haven't even been in the industry for 2 years currently and my phone still gets blown up with calls and texts asking if I want to drive again. So literally all I did was call one of the numbers that would contact me constantly and immediately was hired after 5 minutes of talking on the phone. Sent in a message saying I quit and good luck. Funny enough, then they started responding to my messages and tried calling me. I know it was probably a dick move to fuck them over and I normally would never do that, but I just broke and could not take it anymore. Thank you for saving a life and not falling asleep while driving a truck because they just had to have you for one more weekend. It's never a dick move when your mental and physical health are at risk. First job at McDonald's. 3 different managers all telling me to do different things, and getting mad when I listened to the others. I overheard the worst manager say to the people at the register, and many customers behind the counter, that someone need to teach Alice how to do her job. I didn't even say anything. Just walked out. Dang, if a manager did that and I was a customer, I'd probably report it to the headquarters. That's such a huge asshole move and rarely ever gets results you expect. One of the worst managers I ever worked for got fired that way. He screamed at a co-worker until she cried. In front of customers. One of the customers filed a complaint. Good riddance, he was a moron with an anger problem. My first job. I was assigned to a specific area, and I thought I was doing my job well. One Monday, I was pulled into the office and asked why. Whatever thing it was, I don't remember, hasn't been done for the last 2 weeks. I replied I wasn't aware it was part of my duties. My supervisor said he was putting me on a mandatory non-paid vacation for 2 weeks. No warning, no explanation on why I all of a sudden had to do work for a different department. So I said don't worry about it, I quit. It was a lousy job anyway. I was only getting paid 18 hours a week but was doing more than that. 16 and stupid, I guess. Low-level jobs always tend to flat out not train you in half of the job and then act shocked when you don't know about the thing they didn't train you in. This is the most abhorrent and infuriating thing to experience when you're a teenager, young adult first experiencing employment. I worked for a group home. We had a difficult group of residents, but the company things so much worse. Every resident was 14-22 years old. They had moderate mental development delays, 65-75 IQ range. They all had a psychiatric disorder, from severe ADHD to schizophrenia, and they had also all been convicted of a violent sexual crime. I worked third shift. My normal hours were 10:30 p.m. to 9 a.m., 4 days a week. About 6 months into working there, they did a massive layoff. They went down to bare minimum staff to student ratio each shift, with nobody extra to call in if needed. That meant if someone called out, a person on the previous shift was forced. It got to the point where I was being forced 3 out of 4 shifts per week. And not just a few hours. I was working 10:30 p.m. to around 4:30 p.m. the next day, and still having to come in for my following shift. I had an hour commute each way. So I'd get home at 5:30 p.m. from a 16-hour shift, and have to leave the house again 4 hours later. Managed that for about a month. Then one morning I was told last minute I was being forced. Told them I was fucking done and walked out. That month took a huge toll on my mental health. Swear it took me like a year to recover. I feel you on this one. I worked at a similar type of facility. The violent incidents that got them housed there weren't all sex-related, but the residents were all diminished capacity in varying degrees. You can only get into a wrestling match, without backup, so many times before you realize your own safety is slightly more important than the facility's administrative annual bonuses. Had a super shitty job at a donut shop. I was promised a raise, which I never received. We always worked alone at the shop, so I never got to know anyone else, never got their phone numbers. Yet the non-written policy was that you would find someone to cover your shifts. One day, I woke up and knew immediately that I had strep throat. Went to the doctor and he confirmed that it was strep, and it was really bad. Worst I have ever had it. So knowing that I was contagious for at least 2 days, and knowing that I shouldn't be around people or food, and am not even able to speak, I texted my boss. I didn't have a shift scheduled until the next day. Told her I won't be in for at least a week because of my strep. She told me I will have to find someone to cover my shifts. I told her that's not possible because I don't have anyone's number, I can't speak, and in all honesty was in so much pain I just wanted to pass out. She told me that if I cannot find someone to cover, I will have to come in. And if I don't come in I won't have a job. I replied with cool, guess I don't have a job then. I returned my gear 2 weeks later once I had recovered. Never spoke to that cunt again. She told me I will have to find someone to cover my shifts. I tell people all the time, when a manager tells you this the reply should always be that's your job. Had a job that had flexible hours, I worked 7 to 3. Our clients left at 2 and I usually wrapped all my work up before 3. Well, our manager quit one day and this enormous cunt took his place. He came and began ranting that people weren't putting in 8 hours, started saying that he was going to report our department head to upper management and the people that worked 10-6 he would try to force them into the office by 8. This guy was a massive cunt. I actually completed the most tickets and mentored people. One day he pulled me into the office and told me he wanted me to stay later and that I was doing a terrible job. Asked this piece of shit to check the metrics, to which he said he didn't care. I just stood up and yelled at him. Turned in my notice. How did the cunt react to being yelled at? He didn't actually say anything, just sat there closed-mouthed. The weird thing was all those issues he was having with people, he'd constantly call me into the office to gripe about me, others, and what he hated. It was really odd. A little Greek restaurant I worked at early in high school. Got hired, and spent the first 2 days cleaning everything the owner and son were too lazy to clean. Years worth of old grease in the deep fryer's interior, mold in the fridges, stains in the bathrooms, etc. Just fucking gross. Ask about payday on the end of the second day and it went something like this. So, how does payday work here? Is it weekly? Bi-weekly? What? You are on training. If we like the job you do we will hire you with pay. Confused, I ask, so you're saying that you're not going to pay me for cleaning years worth of mold, grease, and bathroom stains? No, you will be paid for work once your training is done. Oh. Okay. Fuck this, I quit.